We booked plane tickets on Ryanair about a month in advance from Maastricht's small regional airport in southern Netherlands to Barcelona for $232 round trip. Parking at the lot for 7 days cost another $85.
We're sitting in our car seat on the airplane. It's going to be on the airplane and then we'll get it in Spain, right?
Why do airports do this to parents? Money. One of the more challenging parts of this trip with a toddler who had just turned 3 was the air travel and all the airport logistics. Even without a time change, he seems to be at a point in his development where he gets so excited that he misses his nap and then leads to some less than desirable outcomes for the entire family down the road. Once we were actually in Spain, we were able to follow his lead a little bit more and allow him to nap in the car and find a shady place to park to sit out the nap.
Hanging out in a parking garage, letting your kids sleep. He didn't sleep too much last night because he was bouncing around on his bed, too excited.
We ended up spending the majority of this week-long trip in Peñíscola, a striking medieval fortified castle town on a small peninsula of rock and some really nice empty beaches, at least in the off-season. The town has a rich history beginning with native Iberians and later a montage of European empires passed through with the Phoenicians, Greeks, Carthaginians, and the final rendition of the current castle being built by the Knights Templar between 1294 and 1307. On another little side note, in the late 1950s, the castle was partially restored for the epic film El Cid, starring Charlton Heston and Sophia Loren. We booked an Airbnb within the castle walls for $100 a night that had been immaculately restored with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a rooftop balcony with views of the harbor, the castle walls, and the surrounding area. It was a bit of a splurge for us, but Andreas loved it, and we were able to walk to the beach from there. Ashley and I are actually not big beachgoers, and I tend to get bored at the beach after a day or 2 tops, but having Andreas really allows us to slow down and turn back into the sandcastle building children we used to be. Andreas was fully in his element on the beach, building sandcastles, digging and splashing and running around and yelling.
Paella. Can you say paella? Close.
We occasionally ventured out of the immediate area with the car, as that was the only way we could get him to calm down for a nap. On the surrounding coastline, there were a number of secluded little beach outcroppings that we really had a great time exploring and playing in. One of the main reasons we chose Spain as our first family trip from the Netherlands was the Spanish language. I had lived in Mexico for 4 years previously to work and learned Spanish there, so we had basically no issues with communication. However, even without knowing Spanish, I think it would be possible to do a similar style trip. After a few days of beach time, I really wanted to get into the mountains a little bit before heading back to Barcelona. We saw this castle city, Morella, on Google Maps and decided to make the drive up. Driving in the Spanish countryside was very relaxing and very easy. All of the roads and highways we encountered were in pristine condition and relatively empty compared to the Netherlands. Morella was a bit cooler than the coast, with crisp fall air when we were there. We found a small apartment with 2 bedrooms to rent for $75 a night. The castle of Morella also had a smorgasbord of European civilizations passed through since BC times, including the Greeks, Carthaginians, Romans, Visigoths, Berbers from Algeria and Morocco, and not to mention the complicated list of Spanish kingdoms. After our walk up to the castle, we could tell Andreas was getting restless with civilization, so we drove out and found him a nearby dry riverbed under a medieval bridge to explore. This and playing in the sand at the beach were the highlights of the trip for Andreas. Back in Barcelona, we had grand ambitions of seeing more than we did, but we managed to visit Parque and Familia Sagrada. Both areas were so busy that it was overwhelming, especially for Andreas. At Parque, Andreas became anxious with the amount of people and decided to stay in the playground area while Ashley and I took turns taking short walks around and exploring the park. And we didn't even try to go inside of La Familia Sagrada. Which, by the way, you need to book both of these tickets well in advance. We ended up spending more time in the parks and playgrounds away from the major tourist attractions, which was honestly fine with us. Overall, Andreas had a great trip, and the major takeaways for us was to keep the transitions to a minimum and don't try to see a whole bunch of things in a compact time frame. And honestly, Andreas has helped us to understand that seeing a bunch of tourist sites in a rapid style fashion may not be the best way to experience a new place anyways.